and welcome to my review of the Doctor Who Time Lord Victorious book, All Flesh is Grass. Now before we begin, I do just want to say that between chapters 3 and 4 there is a massive jump, as the Mines of Magnox takes place, which they don't tell you about at all in the book, but if it wasn't for Mr. TARDIS, I wouldn't have known this, so many thanks to him. And also that on page 81, the short story Mission to the Known happens, just not from the Time Commander's perspective. Now be warned, there may be minor spoilers throughout this review, but I will attempt to steer clear of them. But without further ado, let's get right onto the review. Starting off with a brief synopsis of the plot, the book takes place right after The Night, the Fool and the Dead, The Enemy of My Enemy, and of course, Monstrous Beauty, acting as the centre of the Time Lord Victorious timeline. But the book itself begins just where the previous left off, with 10 facing off against 8 and 9, each with their own armies to stop him. The Time Lord Victorious versus his ultimate enemies, the great vampires, the deadly Daleks, and of course, himself. I think this acts as the perfect end to the main story. We finally get the meeting of the Knight, the Fool, and the Dead, and it's not disappointing one bit. We get some really good interactions between the three Doctors. One good example is when 8 is trying to understand why 10 would do it. Why would he remove death from the universe and take it upon himself to make a species extinct? But the difference is that 8 hasn't experienced the Time War yet. He doesn't know the horrors of the universe. And because of that, you really empathise with 10. But it also shows the complexity of the Doctor's character. That it really isn't just one person. It's multiple bodies in one. Now onto the characters, starting with the Doctor. First, we'll begin with 10. 10 is yet again like the previous book, as unstable as ever. Nothing can stop him. Nothing can get in his way. Especially not himself. But 10 spends most of this book with Brian, developing their very special relationship. Together they have some very nice interactions, most of them being comedic, which adds a unique element to such a dark story. I love that I can hear David Tennant saying all of these lines, which I think is absolutely perfect, and shows that Una McCormack really does get the character and can write really well for him. The second Doctor here is 9. 9 acts as a sort of mediator between 8 and 10. 9 spends most of his time with Akala, who is a vampire, and their interactions are a very fun read, as Akala, a creature who's meant to be evil, is instead quite peaceful and cares for life. This is best shown with her interactions with the plant Hector, an organism who grows and is full of life, paralleled by an undead creature. The third and final Doctor is 8. 8 manages to get to the Dark Times with the Daleks, something which 10 finds very hypocritical of him. In this story, he acts as the exact opposite of 10. He sees 10 as evil, which is reflected back at him as 8 is working with the Daleks. This gives the reader a very difficult choice on who to support, as they are both doing terrible things. He has some very good interaction with the Daleks, as he's trying to convince bloodthirsty war machines to stand down and give peace a chance. But Daleks will always be Daleks, and they turn their back on him, betraying him. Another main character is Brian. Brian is yet again working with 10, and is absolutely spectacular in this story. He has some really good moments where he's looking through the arsenal of the HMS Donna and something to use on the Daleks and the vampires. But 10's trying to stop him from using weapons of mass destruction as former selves, as there's probably going to be repercussions later on. Brian is also very cunning in this story, using Mr. Ball's vast intellect to his advantage, particularly towards the end of the book. Now on to the main villains of the story, being the Daleks. Each Dalek's unique qualities are translated well to print, keeping the story consistent. And the Emperor also makes a surprise appearance halfway through. For a character who's supposed to be the Emperor of the Daleks, he's not very prominent through the Time Lord Victorious timeline, so it's nice to see him here. The Daleks themselves are quite threatening. Even with the presence of 3 Doctors, they still manage to hold their own. But of course, they cannot win. Overall, it's a good book. I'd say it's better than The Night, the Fool and the Dead, and acts as a perfect crossover for these 3 Doctors. Although it is very weird for them to just drop a story in the middle of chapters 3 and 4 without telling you. A strange decision on their part. But the book itself is about 2 to 3 hours in length, and has a similar page count to the last one, keeping it consistent, not too long, and not too short. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it, please consider leaving a like, and subscribing to my YouTube channel down below. I'll leave any links in the description. I do plan to do the Mines of Magnox in the future, and I also hope that you like the new intro, although it may not be in some future reviews. Thanks for watching.